Welcome in, everybody, to the weekly banter show. It's official. Jeremy Plonk, along with Jeff Siegel for First Bet and Express Bet. We've got 5 topics each week. They're not official until we say so. So, Jeff, we've got a 4th of July recap this week to get into.
Excellent racing over the weekend. We saw several potential champions in action around the country, in Kentucky, obviously up in New York, and some big name horses showed up with pretty close to their A game, which sets them up for Saratoga, which everybody wants to see.
Yeah.
And, I think Saratoga is going to be spectacular this year, and championships are still available to be won in various divisions. So it's that time of year. We're moving into the second half of the year, but some critical races on tap, and it looks like the big names are going to be spot on for big performances. Hopefully, stay sound and healthy, and make the second half of the year a terrific part of the season.
This is a busy time of the year for the moving companies hauling horses to different locales, and a busy time of the year for handicappers. Kentucky in transition from Churchill to Ellis. Belmont's got this weekend yet, and then Saratoga will kick off next week. Final week at Los Alamitos, and then we have the week break in California before Del Mar in 2 weeks. So this is a time of movement and transition. So let's get moving on the It's official program this week with our first of 5 topics on the big board. Life is very, very good. We're talking about Life is Good and his win in the Nehrude. Let's go back and take a look at that from Belmont Park last weekend.
And they're off. Speaker's Corner, and Life is Good. And Life is Good from that inside post position has the early lead. Life is Good 3/4 of a length over Speaker's Corner on the outside. The front 2 quickly open up 3.5 lengths on Repo Rocks in third. And it's another 5 back to Harvard. Life is Good leads here by a head. Speaker's Corner right there on the outside in second. 5 lengths back to Repo Rocks in third. The opening quarter mile in 22 seconds. It is Life is Good, the big favorite down at the rail, leading here by a half length. Speaker's Corner on the outside runs in second as they go around the far turn. Life is Good is the leader. Speaker's Corner running in second. A half dozen lengths now. Back to Repo Rocks in third. And farther back is Harvard. Life is Good, maintaining the lead over Speaker's Corner after a sharp half in 44 3/5 seconds. Life is Good in front with a quarter of a mile to the finish. Speaker's Corner being asked for more on the outside. It is Life is Good with the lead in the stretch, and Life is Good is now opened up on Speaker's Corner. Life is Good has a 3-length lead. Speaker's Corner in second. Repo Rocks is down at the rail in third. Life is Good returning to the races today. Last seen in the Dubai World Cup, comes back sprinting in the 7-furlong John Nehrude and wins decisively.
All right, Jeff, Life is very good sprinting. He's very good routing, but is he very good at 1.25 miles? The Dubai World Cup said maybe not so much. So your takeaways from the Nehrude and where he may go from here?
Well, he's back in form, and that's good to see. He's probably headed to the Whitney, which is a proper spot for him. Whether or not Life is Good is really at his best at 1.25 miles. We saw him falter late in the Dubai World Cup over a very deep and taxing track. He ran 1.25 miles that day in 2:04 4. That's about 25 lengths slower than what he will run the same distance over an American track, say at Keeneland. So
Right.
I'm going to buy the excuse that Todd Pletcher had for that race. He said that the track was too deep for him. So to answer your question, do I think he can go 1.25 miles? Yes, I think he can. Now, whether he can do it with Flightline breathing down his neck or Olympia, that remains to be seen.
Yeah.
He figured to win this race and did it in style, did it like he was supposed to, Jeremy. But I guess beating, Speaker's Corner, I don't know, did he beat him as authoritatively as Flightline did? That's the only thing we really have to go on right now, and he did what he had to do.
Speaker's Corner needs to drop in class and go to the grade 1 Vanderbilt at Saratoga because after meeting Flightline and Life is Good, I don't even care who you meet at a grade 1 next time out. It's going to be a little bit easier spot. You know what, Life is Good, Jeff? I'm inclined to keep cutting him back. He's just fast. I'd like to see him in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I really would. Back in the day of a precisionist, where a great horse could win going long or going short, we don't see it much in the Breeders' Cup anymore, where the top horses go all the way back to the sprint ranks. But this one just feels like that could be the best spot for him. I mean, he would be 1-9 and trounce the field in a repeat bid in the dirt mile. They're not going to go back there. Winning 2 dirt miles does nothing for him. The Classic or the Sprint, I think, are the kind of the two decisions. $2 million for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. It's a little juicier purse than the dirt mile, obviously, being at a mile. It's not the $6 million Classic, but I don't know. What do you think if they went to the Sprint? Would you like him in a Breeders' Cup Sprint situation?
Well, it probably would set up a rematch with Jackie's Warrior, who he faced and got beat by a neck in the Jerkins last year. So they may figure that we'd rather go for the big prize. Horse of the Year will be on the line. You're not going to win Horse of the Year by winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint. The flight line goes out and continues to be undefeated. So I think that's what they're thinking of. And I also think that they might think that if we can just get in front of Flightline, which I think he would be more committed to do than Flightline, then maybe they can get loose in the lead and keep going and have Flightline catch them. So depending upon how he runs in the Whitney, and I don't know whether that would be the only race he'd have prior to the Breeders' Cup Classic, if in fact that's where he's headed for. Well, I think they'll evaluate his performance at Saratoga and say, okay, I think we can do it. I'm not going to hold his defeat in the Dubai World Cup against him. Track was deep. I think he likes to hear his feet rattle, and I think he'll get that kind of track at Keeneland. This was good. It was good. I'm still thinking, though, Jeremy, and I don't know if you agree with me. I still think if I had to pick one or the other right now, I'd still go a little bit towards Flightline.
Oh, yeah, I would too.
But I'd love to see them run. That's for sure.
Yeah, we got a couple stepping stones to that, right? Flightline to the Pacific Classic. He'll be Harpoon to the West Coast. And then the big showdown in the Whitney for Life is Good and some of the others, including some we'll talk about here in just a moment. So, the winner's share of the Breeders' Cup Classic, obviously a huge deal, but the winner's share of the Breeders' Cup Sprint is almost an identical paycheck to running second in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I don't know what's easier, to run second in the Classic or win the Sprint. But I get what you're saying. Like if you're trying legacy and fame and fortune and an all-timer type deal and Horse of the Year, that is that is achieved through the Classic and not the Sprint. But I just get the feeling that this is like easily the best sprinter in the country. I think he would drill Life is Good. I think he would drill Jackie's Warrior in a rematch right now. Let's go to our second topic.
I think so. I think that I don't think they're thinking that, but I don't disagree with what you just said.
Right. Topic 2 on the board is more gold for Olympiad. We talked about potential horses who could be headed to the Whitney. Well, after the Stephen Foster on Saturday at Churchill Downs, that sounds like the plan for Olympiad.
Racing for the top of the stretch, Olympiad takes the lead right at the quarter pole and rolls off the turn in front by 2. Paddle River gives way. Mandaloon gives way. American Revolution is a rallying second. 3 lengths to make up and 1 furlong to go. Olympiad still clear by 2.5. American Revolution trying to run him down. 100 yards to go. Olympiad with those powerful strides flourishes in the Foster, wins by 2.5. American Revolution was second, Proxy was third, and Mandaloon was fourth.
So now 5 for 5 on the year, Jeff. Olympiad only made 2 starts in 2020. He made 3 starts in 2021. He's made that many, 5 already this year through July. And he's starting to feel a little cigarish to me, I mean, this is Bill Mott, a horse, Cigar took a while to become a superstar in his career. But once he started rattling off victories, he just makes that first over move, right? He doesn't need to be on the lead, but he's not going to be far out of it. But when Olympiad gets you in his crosshairs, it's game over. He has been absolutely a punch-out artist this year.
He always works out a great trip. I'm looking at his PPs, and in the first call in his races, he's been second by 1, second by 1, second by a half, second by 1, second by a half. He always he always settles into the second stalking position, keeps him trouble free. He can move whatever he wants to move. Earned a career top buyer number in the Foster, 111. He's never taken a backward move on numbers since October of 2021. Every race he runs, he gets faster. I know that you could envision him sitting third, say, behind Flightline and Life is Good in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and he might be pretty dangerous with that kind of trip, with the two horses going out and dueling each other, and then having Olympiad just stalk, pounce, and go. Olympiad, I guess he's scheduled or slated for the Whitney, and then he can maybe tackle Life is Good. So, but it's about time, really, that he goes out and proves that he's among the very best one or two in the division, because he's winning these grade twos. He's got to go out and win a grade one, and he'll have his chance next time out.
Yeah, look, it's not his fault that where he's running. New Orleans Handicap, Ali Sheba, Stephen Foster. These are top class races in that part of the country. The handicap division just doesn't have that many grade ones anymore. When you think about like the summer and what's to come, if it's not the Whitney or the Pacific Classic, where are you going? Right? I mean, you could go to Keeneland and run the Fayette or something like that before the Breeders' Cup Classic. The Jockey Club Gold Cup's been moved around. There's just not a lot of options in Grade 1 company for these handicap horses. And the collision we're going to see at Saratoga is really fascinating, because you talk about the two horses we've mentioned at the top of the show, Life is Good and Olympiad. Then you throw in Hot Rod Charlie. He's already got his name in the hat for there. There aren't going to be a lot of horses who are going to willing to be biting into that apple in the Whitney at this point. I mean, you've already got 2 to 3 top headline type horses in there. Where do you get the depth from in the handicap division? I think people are going to be scattering and looking for some other places.
Maybe, but Olympiad is looking for a grade one, and you look at his form, and he's won career-wise. He's won 7 out of 10 with a second, and I just think he's a relentless professional, tough horse who, if he can get close to you, and then he might be able to wear you down. I'm not going to sell him short. Numbers-wise, he earned a 111 buyer number last time out on the Foster, and if you look at the others, and Life is Good, he's just about 112. He's just about the same spot. So now it's just a matter with whether or not Olympiad at 1.25 miles, as the son of Speightstown, can continue to be as effective and as dominant as he has been. And that's what he has to go out and prove. But that's what horse racing is about. Go out and prove it and do it. Yeah, I think Bill Mott is looking forward to giving Olympiad that chance. I really do.
And he showed the toughness in the Ali Sheba, if you remember that. He almost he was up against Happy Saver, and then down on the inside, I think it was Proxy or one of those horses, really got in tight with and bounced around, and then shot through like a rocket and drew off the win in the last 70 yards or so, like a good horse. He's passed that test of not only can he do it when the trip is easy, but if the trip's a little tough too, he's shown that he's willing to get in there and bounce around and bang, and that's a good sign. Olympiad, a superstar, just without a grade one on his resume at this point, but I think that is coming sometime soon. Let's go back to the big board. And our third topic this week: are there title hopes alive now for Charge It? This is the kind of statement that if you would have made, I don't know, 86 hours ago or so, somebody would have told you you're a little bit wacky thinking that Charge It could be in the discussion for champion 3-year-old. But let's see what happened in the Dwyer Stakes to change a lot of opinions.
And now the front runner is Charge It. Charge It has taken over the lead from Fluid Situation, the half in 44-4, and now there's 1/4 mile to the finish. And it is Charge It in control as they head for home. 3/4, 109-3. Charge It with the lead in the stretch here, and the lead has grown. Charge It is pouring it on. He's got a 10-length lead. He's going to win by more. Charge It returns to the races in an eye-popping performance, winning the Grade 3 Dwyer by the length of the stretch. Charge It and Johnny Velasquez, and they complete the mile in 1 minute, 34 3/5 seconds.
Very little doubt about the result in that one. The doubt becomes just how to evaluate it, Jeff. It was a 20-plus length victory, but the fractions were nothing special. I mean, coming home, this was a race that maybe it's more about the competition than it is the performance of the winner, in my opinion. 24.94 the fourth quarter of the Dwyer, 24.82 the third quarter. He barely shaded 25 while he was opening up 20 lengths, and that was over a half mile. So they went fast early. They didn't come home particularly fast, and the other horses came home completely with their tongues out, gasping for air. Is Charge It as good as this victory margin seems?
That's a good question. I'm being nagged by the possibility that he's a one-turn horse, even though he can go a mile. I loved his maiden win at Gulfstream Park, which is why, and he did the same thing there, not by as many lengths, but he looked like the same horse when he went off by himself and he broke his maiden going a mile at Gulfstream Park. And that's why I liked him in the Florida Derby, and he got beat in the Florida Derby. And I think he got himself beat that day because
Yeah.
he's still kind of green. He's not a great mover. You got to push and shove on him, otherwise he'll drop the bit. And I think he's the kind of horse that isn't necessarily going to be as effective around 2 turns. He was second in the Florida Derby, but running second to Wide Barrio doesn't really make him a champion. Far back in the Kentucky Derby when he had a breathing problem, comes back following a procedure, wins the Dwyer, and now he's headed probably to the Travers. And, then we'll see whether or not he's a champion. And I think the door is open, obviously.
Right.
With the situations that's happened in the last few weeks. But I don't know the question of whether he's as good as this race makes him look. But he's going to have his chance to prove that it is in the Travers. And then we'll see if he can earn a championship, because it's right there for the taking right now.
Yeah, I mean, Rich Strike completely flopped in the Belmont Stakes. That kind of takes away any of the one race momentum he had from the Kentucky Derby in terms of a championship honor. We still have Epicenter out there, obviously, and he's going to have a big say in the 3-year-old title. But then Mo Donegal, the Belmont Stakes winner, announced this week by Donegal Racing that he's going to be sidelined 3 months with what they call bone bruising. It's the same thing that ended the career of Smarty Jones. He never raced again after being announced with bone bruising, and the thought that he may come back and run again never happened. Will we see Mo Donegal back on the track again? Maybe, but if we do, it's going to be at least October. I mean, you add 3 months to the calendar now, so he's not going to get back for a Breeders' Cup run, you wouldn't think. So his chances of winning a 3-year-old title, Mo Donegal, maybe he gets back and wins the Malibu, a grade 1 at the end of the year, something like that, turning back, but he's not a 7-furlong horse. No. So that 3-year-old title, like you said, is wide open. And of course, the door closes perhaps on Mo Donegal's season. Hopefully he'll be back. But for Todd Pletcher to have the depth in his shed row, to have a horse like this charge it, he's still got a lot to say in the division. But, 3 races this weekend for the Derby horses, the Derby division. In fact, 4 if you count the Belmont Invitational on turf. So still 4 more chances this weekend: Iowa, Indiana, Los Alamitos, and then the Belmont Derby. There's a lot of races for the 3-year-olds that can decide this title yet, but he's one who's got a chance. I just think he has to run better. Visually, right? I mean, visually, I haven't been impressed by Charge It yet. He was his own worst enemy in the Florida Derby, as you mentioned. And here, I mean, I know he's winning by 20 plus lengths, but Dennis's Moment broke his maiden or his second start by 19, and he's 2 for 12 cents, right? And everybody bet out on Dennis's Moment, even money 4 to 5, and took about 5 starts to realize he wasn't as good as that 19th length margin said he was when he dominated. So big win margins don't always mean that a horse has run tremendous, but he's got a shot. He's got a shot. But I'm like, if you gave me a 1 to 5 on whether or not Charge It could be 3-year-old champion, it's like a 1.5 or a 2. I'm on the south side of average.
We'll have to see. He earned a 111 Beyer number in the Dwyer, so you can fall back on that and say he's really fast enough. But again, a 1-turn mile and a 2-turn mile and a quarter, apples and oranges. So
yeah,
he still has to go out and do it. But pedigree-wise, he's basically bred to be a miler. He's by Tappet, which obviously can get you a classic horse, but out of him, by Indian Charlie. So I'm just not completely sold on him, other than he's a terrific 1-turn mile race. And there's not enough money in those kind of races, especially now for 3-year-olds. You're going to have to run long. That's where the money is. That's where the championships are won. And because the door is open, that's what Todd's going to do with Charge It. And let him prove that he's not quite up to that. And if he is, hey, you're a champion then.
That Pletcher Bard is going really, really well, too, of late. You can't underscore that enough. Let's go to our 4th topic this week on It's Official. See you later. We'll go back to CC's win and her repeat at Gulfstream Park this past weekend when she won the Princess
There's
Rooney.
a quarter of a mile left to go. Cece starts to hit high gear, and she's out in the center and on to take a clear lead. Spirit Wind is back to second. Make Mischief and Glass Ceiling are next, but with an eighth of a mile to go, she's back in South Florida and on her way back to the Breeders' Cup. Here's two Princess Roonies. Here's Cece in front and striding clear. She won by 6. Spirit Wind for second. Make Mischief ran third. Corey ended up fourth.
You know, Jeff, we know Cece's a grade 1 caliber filly mare. She didn't take on the toughest field in the Princess Rooney. She was supposed to win like that, but to her credit, she did, and she only ran about a fifth of a second off of what she did last year, so she really hasn't lost much off her fastball, and last year it was a tougher field, and she had to run harder in victory, you know, geared down here to be only a fifth of a second off. She looks as good as ever sprinting.
4 triple-digit buyers in her last 5 starts, or 3 out of 4, I should say. But of course, no, that's 4 out of 5. Yeah. And of course, I'm concluding last year's Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, which she won going 7 furlongs. 7 furlong specialist, has, again, great stalking style. I thought after last year when she was voted champion, Filly and Mare Sprint champion in the Eclipse Award in that division, at age 6 this year, they'd put her away and send her home and make her a broodmare. But she's back and looks like she's as good as ever. And Michael McCarthy is saying that she's probably going to follow the same path she followed last year, likely to go in the Ballerina and then the Chillingwood and then the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. And, there's the way she's going right now, and based on the strength of the division this year with no Gamine in there, and I don't see any reason based on this race and based on her form that CC can't do what she did last year based on this very impressive victory.
Yeah, they stretched her out for the Apple Blossom, and she ran a good third, only got beat about 2 lengths. But that Distaff division is stout, so the incentive to stretch her back out really isn't there. When you look at a Filly and Mare Sprint division that only had 5 in the Breeders' Cup last year, right? There was a 5-horse field in the Filly and Mare Sprint division. There have been no world beaters, I think, evolving out of that group this year. Keep her where she's at, punch your ticket, win another one, and you're kind of like groupie doll, and then you're in that mix of really good Filly and Mare sprinters of the last decade. CC, just keep doing what you're doing with her, and I think they'll be in good shape. Let's go to our 5th topic, our new topic on It's Official, introduced 2 weeks ago, is our Stars of Tomorrow segment, where we look at maiden breakers who could have a big future. We've got 2 2-year-olds and a 3-year-old to discuss this week, Jeff. A couple under the radar and then 1 in stakes company. Let's talk first about Damon's Mound. What did you see there at Churchill Downs?
Well, I saw a very, very impressive first-time starting winner by a horse named, let's see.
Gervin.
Gervin, yeah. And you've got some stats on Gervin, but Damon's Mound won his debut by more than 12 lengths. Gervin was a nice sort of 3-year-old, but I never thought of him as being any kind of potentially top-notch stallion. I think he's standing good for 6,000. But this maiden win that Damon's Mound accomplished at Churchill, he did it by, I mentioned 12 lengths, 84 buyer number, very impressive doing it. Beautiful mover. I mean, he just floats over the ground. There is absolutely no reason why this Michelle Lavelle trained colt will go on and be something important 2-year-old this year. Hopefully he stays sound, Jeremy. But visually, he looked like the goods.
And for these connections, you got to think the cell phones and the text messages are ringing, right? Somebody's trying to buy this horse and move to a bigger outfit, perhaps. But Michelle Lovell knows her way around a good horse. But to have one this good this soon, not really the repertoire of that barn. It's had some really nice turf sprinters, some grass horses as they get a little bit older into their careers. You mentioned Gervin, and I had some stats on it. How about this? Gervin's had 6 starters make it to the races so far, 4 of them winners. And those 6 starters have a 6 for 10 record, including a stakes winner, and then Damon's Mound added on to that. But again, Gervin off to a tremendous start at stud. Of course, he was a good horse in the Louisiana Derby series as a 3-year-old, as you mentioned. But to even get like brilliant win early types, you didn't expect that with Gervin, and he's really off to a great start. So Damon's Mound, our first horse that we want you to keep your eye on our Stars of Tomorrow list. Jeff, back to that list. There's Capensis. This is a 3-year-old who debuted on the turf on July 2nd at Belmont Park. And Todd Pletcher looks like he's got a really good one for grass.
Well, they paid $2 million for him, so he better be good. But he's got. I mean, the first race he ran in was a route of ground on grass, and that's usually not a great sign. Sometimes they'll take these horses and run on turf because they haven't trained well on the dirt. They figure, well, we know what he's going to do on the dirt. Throw him on the grass, maybe that'll work. But the way he performed in this maiden win at Belmont Park, he ran a mile in 39.4, last 16th and 5-3, was sixth at the top of the stretch. Ended up winning by 5. Showed an acceleration that only the good horses have, and he's out of a fantastic race mare. He's by Tappet, and out of a mare named Terrace Tango, who was out here in California. Won the Santa Margarita, won the Rancho Bernardo. She could sprint, she could run long, do anything. And I think this is just his second full. So they gave a lot of money for him. And although he didn't run as a 2-year-old, and he's already on the outside of his 3-year-old season, second half of the year, it's still not too late for Capensis to be a really, really, really good colt. Even if it's just on grass, the way he showed his performance in that race, he is a future star, if not a present one there for Todd Pletcher.
This is one you want to watch the workouts when we get to XBTV. How did this horse come out of the race, right? Because it took, a year and a half into the career, right? Midway through the 3-year-old season to make it to the races. Obviously had some physical issues. How taxing was this race? The way he skipped over the ground at the end, you wouldn't think much, that he really only laid it down the last 3 furlongs of this of this route race on the turf at Belmont Park. Curious to see how fast he gets back on the workout tab, how he works, and what might be next for him at Saratoga. Obviously eligible for a first level allowance race, and Todd may just go ahead and take his time with Capensis. But like you said, a future star if this one stays healthy. Our final stars of tomorrow that we want to take a look at is Gulfport, winner of the Bashford Manor Stakes at Churchill Downs. We'll hear from trainer Steve Asmussen on his thoughts on Gulfport in just a minute, Jeff. But I want to get your thoughts. What did you make of the big-time Bashford Manor win on the 4th of July?
To tell you the truth, he's the son of Uncle Mo, and he reminds me a lot of Uncle Mo. When I saw him as a 2-year-old, Uncle Mo was an incredible 2-year-old and an incredible stallion. This colt did look like Uncle Mo. He made it. He won his first start like a colt that was supposed to win this kind of race. He was 20 cents on the dollar on the basis of his maiden win, which he did that by 7 at Churchill. Comes right back and wins the Bashford Manor from the rail, wins by 12, earns a 91 buyer number, a fantastic mover, real good athlete, should have no trouble carrying his speed at least a mile, if not farther, and headed to Saratoga, and looks to me like clearly the best 2-year-old by far that I've seen so far this year. And I have to wonder whether there's anything out there in the next 3 or 4 months that's going to match up with Gulfport for Steve Asmussen. This is a serious, serious prospect.
Absolutely. He's, from a full sister to Cross Traffic, who was a good route winner. There's more to the pedigree than just some horse who can blaze early in the season. Jenny Reese from the Kentucky HBPA caught up with Steve Asmussen and talked to him after the win of Gulfport on the 4th of July. Some very interesting comparisons in here. Take a listen.
A very nice way to clinch yet another training title by winning at 1-5 with a horse that looked like 1-5.
What a special horse Gulfport is, and to win the Bashford Manor for the Heidel Rose and Carol Castile and Terry Green, the partnership they put together, and boy, they've got a good one.
The Heidel have had so many high quality, very fast
horses.
Well,
it's not an accident. I mean, Bill's excellent at finding fast horses, and he appreciates them. Him and Corinne, and can't say enough about. I believe that's their 4th. Bashford Manor win, and very special that I was able to train all of them.
Would you put him, since some of their other fast horses, since they own them, can you compare?
Well, I mean, this horse, when Bill purchased him, said he reminded him of Yaupan, and both of them sons of Uncle Mo, very similar looks, and Yaupan wasn't going this fast this soon, so who knows how excited to get here.
And I guess he's going to Saratoga, I assume.
Well, that's the plan with him. We loved him before he ever ran. The timing of his maiden race, very comfortable. Gave him plenty of time back into the Bashford Manor, Saratoga Special. Hopeful, go from there.
As you're looking at the development of a horse, watching this race, is there anything you can nitpick at, or is this exactly?
Well, my big concern was the one hole going 3/4 here with the baby. When it's the first time they clear the gap there. Talked about it with Brian, and that was our concern, and he did a beautiful job with him, and Brian's excellent horseman, and it showed up.
So Steve Asmussen's got another potential star on his hands, and if this one's as good as Yaupon, what a sprint future he could have, Jeff.
I think his colt might even go longer than that because he's such a good mover, and his second dam stop traffic was a fantastic race. More amazing sprinter, won the Ballerina, won the Santa Monica, and as you mentioned, produced Cross Traffic, who won the Whitney, who went long. So, I mean, this is a prospect that this is what trainers live and dream about, and he's won his first 2 starts like he's supposed to. If he can stay healthy, I would like to see, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of serious prospects at Saratoga and Del Mar as well. But right now, I can't imagine anybody out there being as good as this colt. That's how impressive he was and has been. And again, being by Uncle Mo, he's not one of these colts that's going to stop improving all overnight. He'll continue to get better and better. And right now, he's a superstar in the making, I think.
Absolutely. And that's what's great about this Stars of Tomorrow segment. We haven't seen anybody like him yet.
Yeah,
we might. There's Daryl Marr and Saratoga coming up right around the corner. Let's review our 5 topics this week on It's Official. Life is very, very good. Jeff, looking forward to seeing Life is Good in a pursuit of the Breeders' Cup Classic. I would like to see him in the sprint. We'll see how it turns out. But first up, he's going to get a matchup with Olympiad, who won more gold this past weekend, and he's set for a Whitney matchup off an impressive performance in the Stephen Foster. As Jeff mentioned, looking for that all-important first Grade 1 win. As for the title hopes for Charge It, he's in the mix with a 20-plus length victory in the Dwyer and the sidelining of his stablemate Mo Donegal, 3-year-old title up for grabs now. And CC as good as ever as she looks towards a repeat in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint division. And in our Stars of Tomorrow, we reviewed 3 of them, 2 at Churchill, 1 at Belmont, who have big futures in store for them. We get a bonus topic each week, and it's official. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's lighthearted. But this week, I want to tip the cap to a dear friend who passed away yesterday. It was, ironically, his 82nd birthday. The Hammer, Hank Goldberg, passed away yesterday at the age of 82. I had the pleasure of working for Hank for several years as I was a researcher for ESPN and all of our shows that we did in horse racing. Work with the Hammer often. We shared tips. The great thing about Hank when he came into a TV trailer, Jeff, he always had a form under his arm. That doesn't always happen in racing TV. There's a lot of people who just kind of, they show up, they do the show, that kind of deal like that. Hank had a form under his arm, and it wasn't for Saturday for the show we were doing. It was Wednesday. It was Thursday. He was playing all week long as we get set for a show on a Saturday. He was a true horse player and an all-around really good guy.
He was. I didn't never get a chance to work with him, but when our paths crossed on various Breeders' Cup days, when he'd come out here to Santa Anita, or I'd run into him back, he's always, what a good guy. I mean, he was friendly, he was upbeat, happy, positive, always loved to talk to him. So again, my experience with Hank, just outstanding guy, and love to be around him. And sorry to see him pass away yesterday at age of 82.
Yeah, the Hammer, this kind of sums up the kind of guy he was. He's kind of big and gregarious, right? And he was famous before I met him. He's not like somebody who developed their career like along my path. He was already famous when I first met him, and he always treated me really well. And he was a great guy to me. And so one year, it's 2004, the end of the 2004 season, Oklahoma's about to play USC in the national championship in Florida in the Orange Bowl. Hank is Mr. Florida.
Yeah.
I'd mentioned to Hank about a month before the game. This was in the BCS era. So when the BCS matchups were announced, I was like, hey, Hammer, can you get me tickets for the national championship game? He said, yeah, absolutely. No problem. I'll get them for you. I didn't hear from him again. It's the winter. Our racing season's done. I don't hear from him. So I'm not, I'm thinking, okay, he just forgot. He didn't blow off. I'm not going to bother him or whatever. The day of the national championship game, I get a call from one of our producers on the ESPN TV shows, and he says, where are you? Hank's looking for you. He's got your tickets. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So I called him. I apologized profusely. I was like, I didn't think you were going to, I just didn't think you got them. I thought you forgot or whatever like that. He goes, don't worry about it. I'll be able to get rid of the tickets, but always know I'll come through for you. And that's the kind of guy Hank Goldberg was. And he did our night school program, our fan education program at Horse Player Now. And we talked to him about handicapping stakes races and the racing at Monmouth, where he grew up playing the races for a preview of the Haskell we did one year. And he was always willing to pitch in and go the extra mile for you if you're a good guy to him. And he was a good guy to me. And I'll say this, Jeff, Oklahoma got beat 55-19 in that Orange Bowl. It was the best game I ever missed.
I was going to say, I don't think that you regretted not going there. I remember that game. I was hoping it would be competitive, and you could see after the first quarter that was going to be a blowout. So I think it might have been a better thing that you didn't go or didn't get those tickets. You probably would have left early anyway.
Yeah, that would have been you travel like 2,000 miles to go to a game and leave at halftime. That's just the way that it works out when you have 5 turnovers. But the Hammer, he loved his football. He loved Miami. He loved horse racing probably more than all of that. And so it was a pleasure to know him and to work with him. And there are some really good guys in TV. There are some people in TV who, could care less about anybody but themselves. He wasn't one of those types. He liked everybody. And the Hammer was a good guy. He'll be missed. That's going to wrap up this edition of It's Official. We hope you enjoyed it. All 5 topics are now official because that guy over there, Jeff Siegel, said so. And we'll be back next week to review what's going to be a big week in the 3-year-old division. Like we said, 3 derbies around the country, plus the Turf Derby at Belmont Park, where international intrigue is already set. The entries are in for this weekend at Belmont. Get handicapping, everybody, and we'll be back next Tuesday to talk to you all again on It's Official.